Dukey03 here, and this is the first top 10 video I've done in years, so bear with me on this one. These are my top 10 Super NES games of all time. Just know that if a game that should be on here isn't on here, I either A, haven't played it on the Super Nintendo, or B, I don't like it as much as you do. If you've watched my streams either on YouTube or Twitch, you'll know what kind of games I'm a big fan of. If you haven't, then you're about to find out. No more introductions, let's get this shit on the Ritz.
Number 10.
Number 10 on my list is probably my favorite Zelda game of all time. A Link to the Past blew me away as a kid. It was such a step up from the original Legend of Zelda in terms of graphics, gameplay, and plot. You play as Link and you're tasked with, wait for it, rescuing the princess. The cool thing is that rescuing Zelda is the first mission in the game, and it's after this that shit really goes down. This game traverses two worlds that were both pretty huge for that era of gaming. There's so many dungeons, so much equipment, and so much interaction with the world. A Link to the Past went back to the series' roots and improved upon everything that the original did, and that's why it made it to number 10 on the list.
Number 9.
Number 9 is a game that Finney and I loved playing. One of the greatest beat-em-ups of all time, TMNT 4 Turtles in Time had to make my list. You play as one or two of the four Ninja Turtles and chase the Foot Clan through time to save all of history and even the future. The levels are great, and it's always cool to see what each boss is going to look like in each time period. My favorites are Pirate Bebop and Rocksteady, and of course, watching Super Shredder trip over the railing and fall to his death. If you love playing co-op games or beat-em-ups and haven't played this game, what are you waiting for?
Number 8.
Holy shit, have I spent hours on this game. My number 8 Super NES game of all time has got to be Harvest Moon. Who knew some weird-ass adventure farming simulator RPG could be so fun and addicting? The point of the game is to restore your grandpa's dilapidated-ass farm back to its former glory, or better, and make as much money selling your shit as possible. As you progress, you'll get better tools, access to more seeds, more livestock, and can creep on girls by chucking raspberries at them till they become your wife. Did I mention there's fishing and you get a dog?
Number 7.
If you've seen any of my streams on Twitch or YouTube, then you know how much I love the Mega Man franchise. Mega Man X3 is, in my opinion, one of the best in the X series. I love the exploration in these games and how it rewards you with upgrades of all kinds. The best part of all is you can finally play as my boy, Zero. Unfortunately, you can only play as him for short periods of time, and if you want to get his sexy-ass Z-Saber, you have to trigger a cutscene where he dies and gives it to X. The Z-Saber is OP as fuck in this game, and I have never beaten the game without it. The stages and bosses in this game are very well designed, as are the way you use their powers to get the upgrades. In fact, the upgrades in X3 are what put this game way ahead of X2 for me. That upward dash, baby! You can get one of your parts upgraded twice if you'd like, or you can be patient and get yourself the ultra badass gold armor. This is the series' first incarnation of a sort of ultimate armor. It gives the double part upgrade to all your parts and makes Sigma actually possible to beat. This version of Sigma for me was the hardest in the series, to the point where when you do finally take this fucker out, you can fall into lava and get pinch killed by the wall as the stage scrolls up. Because of all these great things, Mega Man X3 has secured the number 7 spot on my list.
Number 6.
We're getting into some top tier shit now, guys. Number 6 on my top 10 Super NES games list is none other than Final Fantasy III, or 6 as everyone knows it now. Final Fantasy III was a game I had only played at a cousin's house in the middle of one of her save files. I had no idea what the fuck I was doing or where I was. All I knew was that I loved it. I wanted more of it! It wasn't until years later that I even found out what game it was that I had played that afternoon. When Final Fantasy Anthology came out on the PlayStation, and I had finally finished playing the shit out of Final Fantasy V, it was time to try out this, Final Fantasy VI. It wasn't until I had both Sabin and Shadow in my party that I had realized that this was the game that I had so much fun playing one summer afternoon years ago. The design of this game was so much different than that of the Dragon Warrior games that I had grown up playing. I never even thought that they would make some sort of a steampunk fantasy RPG. Everything about this game was so unique to me. This game, its plot, its characters, and its villain are all so amazing, and that is why it takes number 6 on my list. Honestly, the only thing holding this game back is how much I hate a few of the characters, as well as World of Ruin. I hate World of Ruin! In fact, it wasn't until this year that I finally pushed through and beat this game live on stream.
Number 5.
Number 5 on my list is a remake of both one of the best NES games as well as one of the worst NES games. I'm talking about Dragon Quest 1 and 2 for the Super Famicom. Dragon Quest 1 for the Super Famicom is, in my opinion, the best version of the original Dragon Quest game. And if you know me, you know how big of a Dragon Quest fan I am. If you're only ever going to play the first entry in the franchise once, make it this version. There's a really good English patch done by RPG1, so check that out for sure if you're interested. The game is so much more streamlined than the original. The pacing is fantastic and isn't dragged out just for the sake of making the game longer by grinding. The graphics in this version are just perfect. It has that classic Super Nintendo Dragon Quest look to it, which makes Akira Toriyama's designs really stand out. I've always loved the Green Dragon, and it's a bit of an inside joke, but my friends and I have always referred to him as the Green Dagron. The Dragon Lord is also such a fantastic villain, always looming just across from Tantacle Castle. You only hear about him, but never see him until the very end. For being the first ever JRPG, Dragon Quest is amazing in and of itself, but this remake makes everything even better. So enough about Dragon Quest 1, what about the shit show that was Dragon Warrior 2? There's no way they could have made that game better, right? Well, surprise, surprise, motherfuckers! Dragon Quest 2 is finally good! They fixed most of the bullshit that made Dragon Warrior 2 on the NES an absolute nightmare to play through. You can actually just play the damn game and enjoy the world and its story. This remake is so good that it actually made me like Dragon Quest 2. Something I had never thought possible until playing this. All this and more are why Dragon Quest 1 and 2 on the Super Famicom made number 5 on my top 10 Super NES games of all time list.
Number 4.
God damn, I love Mega Man. So of course, the only classic Mega Man on the Super Nintendo is going to have to be on my list. They did a really good job with this game, despite it looking funny at first. Mega Man has been upgraded from 8 to 16-bit, so he's a bit taller and has much more detail than in his previous entries. I think what I really liked about this game is that it kept everything that made Mega Man, unlike that shitbag of a game Mega Man 8. You've got the slide, the charge shot, rush jet, some weird rush search thing, and they brought back a feature from my favorite Mega Man game, the rush adapter. They changed the rush adapter, making both forms into one. So now you have a sexy punchy punch, while also being able to fly, sort of. Okay, it's more like a double jump, but I still love it. Oh, and you know what else? My boy Proto Man can be found, and when you find his fine ass, you get yourself the Proto Shield. Do I ever use Proto Man's shield once I have it? No. But is it cool as fuck?
Oh, hell yeah, brother!
I really think they did a good job going back to classic Mega Man after already making the jump to the Mega Man X series earlier on the system. For that, I commend the shit out of Capcom, and this great game makes it to number 4 on the list.
Number 3.
I don't know if I've ever told you guys, but I really like Mega Man. Mega Man X took everything we all loved about the classics and made it new again. Mega Man X takes place in the year 21XX as opposed to the classics, which took place in 20XX. So 100 years later, Dr. Light's greatest creation, X, is found and awakened by Dr. Kane. Dr. Kane, being a fucking genius, decides to make an entire life form based on X's technology. Technology that neither Kane nor X himself fully understand. These beings are known as Reploids, and when they get pissed off and fight against the humans, they get branded as Mavericks. It's up to X himself and his partner Zero, the Maverick Hunters, to take down the evil Mavericks while stealing their powers in classic Mega Man fashion. One of the smallest but greatest changes they made with the X series was the wall jump. X can grab and slide down walls as well as jump off of them. It sounds like such a simple addition, but it changes everything. Just think, almost every Mega Man boss room is surrounded by walls. Every stage has walls and ledges you can now jump off of. All this with the continuation of exploring the stages to get power-ups make this game an instant classic. Now you can get heart tanks to extend your health bar, leg parts that make you dash, armor parts that up your defense, head parts that let you, smash shit with your face, and of course Dr. Light's sweet-ass Hadouken upgrade. If you collect everything, then do some special shit to trigger these events. Mega Man X is as hard or as easy as you want it to be. If you want to rush through the game without getting any upgrades, then you're a badass. If you're like me and love taking the time revisiting all the stages and collecting all the things so that you can get the sexy Hadouken and one-hit kill enemies as long as you have full health, you're obviously rewarded for that as well. For starting a fantastic sequel series to an already amazing classic, Mega Man X definitely deserves its spot near the top at number 3.
Number 2.
Number 2 on my list is a game that in its later releases would definitely top this list for me. The only reason this game didn't make number 1 is because of the changes made to the English Super Nintendo version. Final Fantasy II on the Super NES is one of my favorite games of all time. This was only the second Final Fantasy game released in North America, so you can understand how blown away I was when seeing how much better the plot, world, and overall game design was over the original on the NES. The story, characters, and world in this game are just so damn fleshed out and memorable. I don't want to say too much about the story in case some of you haven't played it yet, but it's full of deaths, twists, and character development out the asshole. This was the first Final Fantasy game where each character is its own job class, which to me makes them more unique. Did I mention the fucking music in this game? Oh my god! Final Fantasy IV, or 2 as it's known on the Super NES, has some of my favorite video game music of all time. Battle with the Four Fiends, dude. Battle with the Four Fiends. As I mentioned at the start of number 2 here, there are some things that honestly make the Super Nintendo version the worst version of Final Fantasy IV. They removed a shitload of abilities that each character had, like Darkness for Cecil, Prey for Rosa, and Yang's Focus and Brace, to name a few. These changes and a few others, plus the sometimes terrible translation, really hurts this version of the game in my opinion, which is why it got stuck at number 2. If you're looking to play this incredible game, my recommendation would be to play the PS1 version that was included in Final Fantasy Chronicles.
Number 1.
Speaking of Final Fantasy Chronicles, of course you knew this game had to be on the list somewhere. And since I hadn't mentioned it yet, you probably know what's up. The best Super Nintendo game of all time is definitely Chrono Trigger. From the ground up, this game is just an incredible experience. The characters, the world, the fucking plot, and why wouldn't this game have been so awesome? It was literally made by the people behind both Dragon Quest and Final Fantasy. With a bit more of a Dragon Quest feel in my opinion, Chrono Trigger to some, is the greatest RPG, no, the greatest game of all time. There's no feeling quite like traversing time to save the world from its inevitable destruction at the hands of an intergalactic planet eater. The world here is so great, and it's even better because you get to see it in 6 different time periods, from 65 million BC all the way to the nuclear wasteland like 2300 AD. All these time periods are obviously connected, but offer completely different experiences. Man, this game is just so good! If you haven't played this game before, go check it the fuck out. The best part is that I believe the Super NES version is still the best version of the game. Well folks, that's it for my top 10 Super Nintendo games of all time. I know my list won't be the same as yours, and that's okay. That's what makes us different, you know? Spice of life and all that shit. But before I go, I just want to toss out some honorable mentions. Dragon Quest III's Super Famicom remake, as well as Dragon Quest V, are both absolutely amazing games. Dragon Quest V couldn't make the list because unfortunately, the Super NES version is just the worst version of this awesome game. Donkey Kong Country 1 and 2 are some damn good games. Check those bad boys out for sure if you have a Super Nintendo or access to them via some sort of virtual console type thing. Kirby Superstar is definitely my favorite Kirby game on the Super Nintendo, and it's just a lot of fun to play. F-Zero is one of my favorite racing game series, and it got its start on the Super Nintendo, so definitely check that shit out. Alright everyone, I hope you enjoyed my first YouTube exclusive video in a long time. If you want more of these, please let me know in the comments and hit me up live on my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Dukey03. Thanks for watching.